For this lesson, you need to open the sample file Sales Summary 1 from your Sample Files folder. This lesson will introduce structured table references. Now, there's a very small possibility that somebody has been changing the settings on your copy of Excel. So there's two settings I'd like you to just check first of all to make sure that's not the case on your computer. And here are the two settings. Click the File tab on the ribbon to go into Backstage View, then click Options from the left-hand menu bar, and then Formulas. And notice the option Use Table Names in Formulas. You must make sure that this checkbox is checked, or this lesson won't work as expected. This is the standard setting for Excel. And let's look at one more setting now. Click Proofing in the left-hand menu bar, and then click the Auto Correct Options button, and then click the Auto Format as you Type tab. The important setting here is Apply as you work, include new rows and columns in table. Make sure that this setting is also checked. And then I'll click OK and OK again to return to Excel. Now, it's almost certain that those settings would have been checked on your computer anyway, because that's how Excel is when you first install it. But I just covered those because for a very small number of users, they might have a lot of frustration with this lesson if somebody has changed those settings. One of the key differences between a range and a table is that tables shrink and grow dynamically. The table's ability to shrink and grow wouldn't be useful without a way to enter a cell reference into a formula that points to all of the rows in a table column, no matter how many rows the table contains. Consider the practice file for this lesson. To calculate the total sales, I could click in cell G3 and then type equals sum, open brackets, then select the total sales in column D, and when I press the Enter key, you'd see the total sales. But now let's look at a problem when using ranges. Let's imagine that we've received new sales figures for the month of April. So I'll type April into cell A7, and then 20,000 for the sales, 1,500 for the tax, and 21,500 for the total sales. But notice that the figure in cell G3 hasn't changed, and that's because it's still referencing D4 to D6. I'd have to manually adjust the range in order for it to still return the correct value. In order to exploit the power of dynamic tables, the Excel designers had to figure out a whole new way of referencing cell ranges. They needed a cell reference that would mean sum of all of the cells in column D that are inside this table. Because there may be several tables in a single worksheet, the cell reference needs to indicate which table the range is in. This has been solved by adding the ability to name tables. If the table in this example was called Sales, and the column was called Total, as in the range, the formula would be equals sum, and then the name of the table, Sales, followed by the name of the field, Total in this case, in square brackets. And this formula would return the sum of everything in the Total column, irrespective of how many rows the table had. Of course, that's not going to work here, because this is a range and not a table. In order to see structured table references work, we'll have to convert the range into a table. And that's what I'll do now. So I'll begin by cleaning up the range by removing the value in cell G3 and also removing row 7 that I've just added to demonstrate this shortcoming of ranges. I'll now click inside the range and convert it to a table by clicking Insert on the ribbon and in the Tables group, Table. And the range has now become a table. Because I'm going to have to refer to this table by name, it's a good idea to give all of your tables meaningful names. And a good name for this table would be Sales. So I'll click anywhere inside the table and Table Tools Design on the ribbon, And if you look in the Properties group, you can see the table name is currently Table 1. Well, I'll change that now to Sales. Now just a few words about table names. You should never abbreviate them. It might seem like a good idea to abbreviate your table name. For example, change this to SL. And on a simple worksheet such as this one, you'd always know which table SL was pointing to. But imagine a workbook with 100 tables. Your abbreviations would make the structured references very difficult to understand. There's no good argument for ever abbreviating table names, so let's change that back to Sales. And don't forget to press the Enter key to save the value into the cell. Now that I've named my table, I can create that structured table reference. So I'll click in cell G3 and type equals sum, as I did before, open bracket, and select those 3 values in column D. And look, there's my automatic structured table reference. Sales, the name of the table, followed by total, the name of the column, in square brackets. I don't need to type the closing bracket. Excel's clever enough to add that for me. So I'll press the Enter key, and you can see my total sales in cell G3. But now let's look at the real power of the structured table reference when you need to add another row to the table. When I add the row, 2 things happen. First of all, my total sales figure is correctly updated. And that's because that structured reference means the sum of every value in the total column of the sales table. And the other thing that happened was that the tax and total values in C7 and D7 both updated. That's because, unlike ranges, an Excel table will assume that calculated fields remain consistent throughout a column. When you added a row to the table, Excel automatically added formulas to cells C7 and D7. This saves a lot of time compared to ranges, where you have to manually autofill your formulas to the remainder of the column. So I'm sure that you can now appreciate the power of structured table references. All that remains now is to save your work, and I'm going to save with the new name Sales Summary 2. And as usual, I'll save to the folder above my sample files folder. I click the Save button, and you've now completed lesson 114, Name a Table and Create an Automatic Structured Table Reference.